media folks get their names and identifications, I'll ask each person to come up, say their name, their title, and spell their name so that you can get that on record, and then we'll begin shortly after that. We'll begin first with Chief Pelletier.
Aloha, John Pelletier, John-Pelletier, Chief, Maui County Police Department.
Aloha, I'm Special Agent in Charge Stephen Merrill of the FBI. My name is spelled Steven Merrill.
Julie French, JuliefRench, Senior Vice President of Andy Corporation.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Martin. I'm the Maui County Prosecuting Attorney, and our organization is heading the Family Assistance Center, ANDREWMARTIN.
Thank you, everyone. As again, I remind everyone that we welcome you here, and I thank you graciously for the aloha and responsible reporting that everyone commits to, and we'll do our best today. At today's press conference, we are focusing on the ongoing efforts related to unaccounted family members. We'll be taking questions from members of the media following the statements from our speakers today. But on Sunday, I do want to make this announcement. Last Sunday, we announced that questions from the community were also welcomed. We continue to welcome that via our email that was established at community@mauicounty.com. We also, we got well over 50, near 100 questions coming in as of today. We'll be responding to those community questions in a separate daily video in order to accommodate that time and be more thorough. We started that today. We released one video responding to questions, and we'll be continuing to post them online and set up a special webpage to help respond to that. So to our members of our community, please continue to use community@mauicounty.gov to send in your questions. Following Mayor offering his remarks will be Police Chief John Pelletier, who you just met, Special Agent in Charge Stephen Merrill of the FBI, Honolulu Division, Julie French, Senior Vice President of Andy Rapid DNA, followed by Andy Martin, who leads the Family Assistance Center. Andy is also the Maui County's prosecuting attorney, but in this disaster, his role is to lead the coordination and efforts of the Assistance Center. So we'll begin here now. First, I'd like to invite Mayor Richard Bisson to the podium for some opening remarks. Mayor.
Aloha mai kākou. I first want to point out our gratitude to President Biden for visiting with us yesterday, but more importantly, for his pledge and his commitment to Lahaina and its people, including Earl Kukahiko, who spoke yesterday about losing 4 of their family's homes and reminding him that Lahaina was not for sale. I also would like to thank the President for describing how he would help with recovery, with rebuilding, and most importantly, with respecting the culture and the town of Lahaina. I would also like to thank all the organizers, the volunteers, the chefs, the entertainers, and all of those who put together and welcoming us to their town of Lahaina. At this time, I would like to introduce our Chief of Police, John Pelletier. Chief.
Aloha, everyone. Patience, prayers, perseverance. We got to remember that, because we can't lose our patience. Everybody sees that we need our prayers, and we've got to and will persevere and overcome this. A couple things I'm going to talk about today, specifically the urban search and rescue efforts, where we are, where we're going, what that looks like. And then we'll talk about why the FBI is, one, partnered with us in some of the aspects that they are. And then I'll turn it over to the Special Agent in Charge. I wanted to bring this map here to show you the area. And the reason this is important is every single structure or area that's been damaged by the fire is being and will be searched for human remains so that we can recover our loved ones. I've said it before, I'm not going to stop saying it. We are going to do this right. We're not going to do it fast. We cannot be in a rush to judgment. We've got one chance. And when this is all said and done, realistically, let's be honest here, we're going to have a number of confirmed, we're going to have a number of presumed. I do not have that number now. We're going to work diligently to get that. It may take a while. I know everybody wants, what's that? How fast? How quick? It's not a matter of doing it how fast and how quick. It's a matter of doing it right. You can see the different zones right now. You can have the screens as well. Baker, Hill, Sugar, and Front are the final divisions, if you will, of multi-level structures. And so what we're doing in those is we're delayering from the top, and we're sending the teams in, and we're doing everything to find the remains and make the recovery. And that takes some time. And we had to get the equipment in. So we had to clear some of the vehicles in off of Front Street. And we've got to make sure that we're doing this in a systematic, thorough way. There's more information underneath those dots, but we're not going to get into those. And that's not necessarily going to be released because that's, what we found where we did. But every single remain, once the urban search and rescue came in, we have GPS coordinates for it. And we want to make sure that we have the ability to identify and notify. And that's exactly why Ms. Julie French is here, and that's why the FAC is here, because we've got to make it a point to get the ability to get our loved ones named and give them the respect and dignity that they deserve. There is no, in my opinion, and obviously if I say certain things, they tend, whether it goes viral or not, with my partner here, we know those things happen. But in my honest, humble opinion, the most reputable law enforcement agency in the world is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And there are certain things that exceeded MPD's bandwidth very quickly, and that's the ability to have analytical data to look at and understand the numbers of those that are unaccounted for. There's a difference between missing persons and unaccounted for. In this particular incident, we know the time, the location, the place, and in that incident, there are those that are unaccounted for. That's different than a missing person that might have certain mental health issues, maybe part of a criminal situation, and then you do an investigation for that. That's why we're using the word unaccounted for. And so while we were building and understanding this, I reached out to Special Agent in Charge, Steve Merrill, and asked him for the help. And without even hesitating, it was, what do you need and how much? And the data that the FBI has been scrubbing through, I'm going to leave it to Special Agent in Charge to talk about, but I think that will help alleviate and answer some of the questions you guys have. Please understand this. Once the search is done, I can't guarantee, nor can anyone say that we got everybody. We're going to do our darndest to get it right and make every effort to do that. 2,000 people on 9/11 were not recovered. We don't have that type of devastation with the towers like we saw there, but we have an entire town that's destroyed. And we're going to do everything we can, again, to get that right. And so if I may turn it over to Special Agent in Charge. Every one of those black dots, in case you didn't catch it, was an area that was searched. And so that's a data point to give you the understanding that each one of those places was searched. So there were some questions of, did we search up the hill? Yes, we did. Did we search in this location? Yes, we did. And so you can see it, and I'm sure afterward you'll come in and zoom on the picture, but that way you can see that.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Stephen Merrill, Special Agent in Charge of the FBI Honolulu Division. It is a privilege and an honor for the FBI to play a role in this endeavor. We're very thankful for everyone that is playing a role both in the government and the private sector and in the public for their help. And I will be making an ask, if not many, of the public and the media for help in these efforts. Just so you know, the FBI Honolulu division covers, among other places, the entire state of Hawaii. We have an office, the FBI office here in Maui, where our employees live, work, raise their children, have families. And this is a big part of what we do in the FBI. So when the chief asked for our help, as he mentioned, we didn't hesitate. Again, it's a privilege for the FBI to play a role. So why would the FBI play a role in this? We have resources that other agencies may not have. And even if they do have them, we want to be in a position to complement them. So in addition to everything else we'll talk about, I wanted to highlight a couple of the assets that the FBI brings to bear as part of our cooperation with the Maui Police Department and every police agency, federal, state, and local here in our state. We have an incredible group of people and expertise that I'm very proud of. And that expertise includes, among other things, evidence collection through our evidence response team, which is deployed here in Maui, has been here since the fires. Along with that, we have forensic science experts that come either locally or from our laboratory, which I believe is the best laboratory in the world. And as a result of that expertise, we're able to collect a great deal of evidence from a variety of means that has been very helpful for us to identify who these unknown people are and try to limit the list so we can concentrate on those that are still missing. In addition to that, we've had victim advocates here that have been providing federal resources to the victims and their families. We also have cellular telephone analysis, which is helping to identify where some of these people were as we keep on looking for the unidentified and unaccounted for persons. We also have a command post set up in our Honolulu office, which is manned by a combination of FBI agents, FBI intelligence analysts, as well as professional support staff, which over the course of this entire period have been working overtime trying to consolidate all of the lists of those accounted for, unaccounted for persons that each agency has. And as an example, what that means is we have lists that we've collected from the Maui Police Department, missing persons. We have Red Cross lists. We have FEMA lists, various shelter logs, logs from the Family Assistance Center, as well as MEMA records, in addition to many others. Some of these lists contain people who are on multiple lists. And what we've been trying to do is trying to get that number down where we're cross-referencing all the lists so that we can determine who, in fact, truly is still unaccounted for. Before I get into the details on how we do that, I wanted to tell a little story because a lot of times in my 30-year career in the Bureau, people will ask me, is the FBI the same as what they see on TV and in the movies? And I often answer the same, which is there's times when I do things and I've done things that are more exciting than you'll ever see on TV and in the movies. There's also many instances, probably more so, that my job has been incredibly, painstakingly boring. And that's part of the job as well, you don't see on TV. But the one thing that these events have brought to my attention is how difficult some of the things we do in law enforcement are. And I highlighted our victim advocates and our evidence response team. And the things that they've done and other members do every day here on this team represented on the stage on the dais is truly difficult. I can't imagine ever having to deliver as many death notifications as our employees are doing all around the country, in fact, all around the world if necessary, as well as they're going out and collecting DNA from family members around the world, around the country, so that we can use all that information to try to figure out who still is unaccounted for. And I'm very proud of our people for jumping on these immediately, just as everybody on the stage has done since these events began. All right, so let me get into the details about how we're collecting these lists and what we're doing with them. Again, these lists come from a variety of sources, and some of the information is highly ambiguous. For instance, we have information about a first or last name, but not both. makes it very difficult for us to identify who that person may be. So our request of the public is, please, if you have already submitted complaints, whether to the Maui Police Department about a missing person or the FBI or anyone else, please follow back up to ensure that they have the most up-to-date and accurate information, including dates of birth, what they look like, who they're related to, further contact information. Because along with the unambiguous information, the ambiguous information, we also have some information that's very specific. And as we get through, it's much easier for us to go through that list and identify information that contains a date of birth, contains more information, so that we can cross-reference through all these lists to determine, again, if that person is in fact still unaccounted for. To do that, the FBI has set up a telephone number in Honolulu, 808-566-4300. Again, that's the FBI Honolulu, 808-566-4300. And we have an email address of HN, the two letters, _command-post@ic.fbi.gov. And that we have people standing by that's collecting that information, processing it, and implementing it into our spreadsheet, which we're providing to the chief and other role players. So as a result of all these lists consolidated into one, we have a number of about 2,500 that at some point were reported either by family members or by agencies, shelters, whatever it may be, that were reported missing. That doesn't mean that there's 2,500 people missing. That just means we have 2,500 records that we've had to go through and try to get to the bottom of it. I'm proud to say that as a result of the hard work by all the agencies involved, we have already determined that of those 2,500, approximately 1,400 have been found safely or adjudicated to some way where we're confident that we know their whereabouts. That leaves, however, about 1,000 people that we're still trying to drill down the list. We're making tremendous progress, but no one on this stage will be happy, including myself, until we get that list as far as we can go. As the chief mentioned, we may not know in the end about everybody, but we are diligently working with immediate attention to get that list down to where we want it to get to, which is that we're confident we know what happened to the best of our ability. And I really wanted to thank the forensic scientists involved that are using the information FBI employees are collecting around the country, such as DNA and fingerprints of the victims that we can pull to use to definitively say whether these people are still accounted for or not. We are still in the process of collecting additional records, so the numbers that I've quoted may in fact rise because we're still collecting information. There may be a shelter out there, for example, a hotel out there that hasn't reported people, and so I encourage everyone to again contribute by calling the Maui Police Department or the FBI at 808-566-4300 so we can collect that information. We really need the public's help. And thank you to the media for broadcasting that so that we have more information. More information will make our job better and easier and most importantly, more complete. Thank you again to all the first responders. Thank you again to everybody who's allowed the FBI to participate in this. I can't thank you enough for making us part of the community. The FBI, again, we live here in Maui, we work here in Maui, and we're very happy to play a role in this endeavor. And thank you very much.
Hello, Julie French from the Andy Corporation, and I'm leading the rapid DNA testing efforts on Maui for this event. In partnership with the Maui Police Department and their supporting agencies, we are using rapid DNA technology to help to link remains to family members. Andy Rapid DNA technology is being used here in Maui, and we're comparing the DNA results that are generated from remains to available family members. Nearly 3/4 of the remains that have been tested for DNA thus far have generated searchable DNA results. We need family members to come forward and donate their samples so that we can compare them to these DNA profiles we've already generated from remains. This is a critical step in order to make an identification based on the DNA testing that's already been done. DNA is passed through families, so the DNA can be used to link family members together. Parents, children, siblings share the amount of DNA, and that sharing allows us to make comparisons that can ultimately identify someone and allow the DNA to bring the answer about who that individual is. It's important that families that are missing loved ones come to the Family Assistance Center. The Family Assistance Center will welcome you in. We encourage you to come together with your family members. Multiple samples from a given family are best. So we'd like multiple people from the same family to come forward and give their samples. The testing that's being done here is following standard procedures. We're using DNA to bring integrity to the process and to bring accurate results to the identification. We're using measured approaches, and we're making sure that everything's correct. Briefly, the process includes conducting DNA testing on the remains that come into from the search and rescue teams. That DNA processing is happening automatically. The family members that come to the Family Assistance Center or otherwise donate their family samples, those samples are being automatically compared to those profiles from the remains. The process of contributing your sample at the Family Assistance Center is simple and it's quick, and all testing is being done right here at local facilities. A Q-tip swab is inserted into your cheek and rubbed up against the side to collect DNA material. We also collect personal information about you as the donor, as well as your relationship to the missing or unaccounted for individual that you're reporting. This biological relationship is very important to capture and will help us with the ultimate DNA comparisons that may be made. All of this testing is happening right here in Maui, and the samples that are donated at the Family Assistance Center are not being entered into any sort of government-run databases that are used for any other purposes. The samples are only being used for the sole purpose of comparison to this disaster and the remains that are recovered from this disaster. I'd like to thank all the family members that have come and donated their samples, and I'd like to thank those that have agreed to come in when outreach was made to them. This rapid DNA technology has been used in other disasters and has been successful in identifying and bringing identification information to these unknown remains. Our plea to encourage people to come to the Family Assistance Center is really impactful for our testing, because we don't want to end up in a situation where we've generated results from remains that have come in from the disaster, but we don't have anyone to search against them. So we really need those family samples so that we can search the ones we've already generated. This is such a difficult time. It's a difficult time for all of us, and we appreciate that our outreach and our request to come to the center is difficult, but we really want to help. We're honored to be here helping to provide Andy rapid DNA technology to this disaster to help bring identifications to the citizens of Maui.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Andrew Martin. I am leading the efforts over at the Family Assistance Center with the help of the employees at my department, specifically our Victim Witness Assistance Division. I'm also the prosecuting attorney here in the county of Maui. You know, a couple of days ago, I had an opportunity to check in with one of Chief Ventura's firefighters. We were right outside in the parking lot here, and as so many members of our community, I'm sure as many of you have done, we just took a moment to say, how you doing? And this person shared something with me that I just thought, really encapsulated what all of us up here today are trying to do and why this is so important. For those of you who are from here, I mean, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You can go to Long's Drugs on any given day and you walk in, and it doesn't matter if you're on Maui, Oahu, Kauai, Big Island. You walk in Long's Drugs and 3 or 4 people when you walk in the door. You're just going to see them walking up and down the aisles, and that doesn't even count the 3 or 4 people that you're going to pass driving in there. We all know each other here. It's one of the things that makes living in Maui, living in Hawaii so wonderful. It's also the reason why this is so hard now and in the coming days, weeks, and months. And that's why we're here today, to ask for your help, the public's help, community's help, so that we can assist our neighbors, our friends, our family members, our community members, our visitors who are here and live in the continental United States or around the world. The Family Assistance Center is located at the Hyatt Regency in Kaanapali. It hosts a variety of wraparound services for victims, but the one service I really want to focus on today is the services that are provided by the United States Department of Health and Human Services. They have individuals there who are assisting family members in identifying the unaccounted for. The process is a simple one. Individuals can come down to the center. They're greeted in a registration area where navigators, we call them counselors from my department, will meet them, find out what their needs are, and be with them throughout the entire process, including the interview process with the victim identification team. Those individuals who are here are partners who are here to help us with this part of the process. Our counselors will assist them in interviewing the family members who come down to get information from them about their family members, their loved ones who are still unaccounted for. This includes medical information, dental information, identifying information where they may have lived or stayed. And if the individual wants to, they will also provide them with the opportunity to submit a DNA sample. As you just heard from Julie, this is really an important part of the process and what everyone is working on right now. It's a simple process, as Julie just described. It is important, I think, for everyone to know and understand that the analysis being conducted is being conducted by ANDE, not by the FBI, not by the Maui Police Department. The DNA profiles are not being retained by the FBI, by MPD, or used for any type of purpose other than helping individuals find their unaccounted for family members. That is the only reason why this is being done. When the individual comes comes into the center for an interview, they can be assured that that is the case. It's in the consent form that they sign. It's spelled out in black and white. Our only concern is helping people find their unaccounted for loved ones. We understand that not everyone can come down to the Family Assistance Center, that not everyone who is looking for family members is here and able to do that. So for those individuals who are off island, whether they are elsewhere within the state of Hawaii, whether they are on the mainland, continental United States, or in any international location, we urge them to call the FBI Honolulu. I'll repeat that number again at 808-566-4300. The FBI will make arrangements for individuals, family members, to be able to provide their DNA sample if they wish to do that in whatever locale they are, anywhere in the world. Individuals who want additional information on the Family Assistance Center may also call 1-800-RED Cross. The Red Cross can, if they wish, connect them directly with the FBI in Honolulu. And if anyone feels more comfortable writing into us about the process, they may email us at fac@mauicounty.gov. I want to thank you all for being here. Again, we ask for everyone's assistance and help. Please, if you are on the island of Maui and you have a family member who is unaccounted for, come down to the Family Assistance Center at the Hyatt Regency. We are there to help you. We are there to walk you through the process. If you are elsewhere in the continental United States or elsewhere in the world, please call the Red Cross, call the FBI Honolulu, so we can help you, so we can help identify your unaccounted for loved one. Thank you very much.
All right, we are going to proceed with questions from the press. I will ask you, as I asked earlier, to raise your hand, state your media, and speak a little louder. I'm going to try to repeat the question, but also if your fellow reporters could hear that as well. We're going to start at the back of the room, the far gentleman with the red shirt. I saw you first. Please say.
How are you considering publicizing this with the public involved in helping the town as was done in California?
Thank you, Kiahi. The question is, will we be moving towards publicizing a list of names? Correct.
Look, great question. It's fair. And I am going to answer it, but give me 1 second just to say a couple things, if you don't mind. The amount of work that all of the first responders and members of the community are doing is so much that we'll never be able to capture. We'll never be able to quantify that. We have people that literally responded knowing their homes burned down. They know that they have people that are deeply affected by this. We have people going to work, both fire, police, medical. They're borrowing clothes. They're borrowing clothes. Their kids are borrowing clothes. They have nothing. And so I just think it's so important that we take a moment as human beings and recognize how much we're really into this. Reference the question, let me answer that. So the answer is yes, we are looking to do that, but what we want to do is we want to get a verified list. The 1,100 names right now, we know that there's a margin of that some of them have first names only. And there's no contact number back. So there was John's missing. We try to call back who said that, nobody's answering. I have a retired member of the department that was on Pukalani who was never down there. His name was on the list. And so we're trying to scrub this to make it as accurate as we can. There is an email right now. We just set this up before we came in. unaccounted@mpd.net. unaccounted@mpd.net. We want you to do a report because right now we have 85. So we can talk about lists and we can talk about numbers, but I have 85. So if you're serious, do a police report. Because I'll tell you what, if you want to waste our time and do a fictitious report, we'll deal with that. But the reason I'm saying that is don't waste our time when we're trying to do the right thing. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. We're going to scrub the data. Once we get to what we think is a viable list or a verified list, we'll push that out. We'd like to do that in the next few days, maybe sooner than that. I don't want to get tied into exactly what day and what time, because then it might not be exactly right. But yes, we will get that out there. So if we do know that there's somebody we can take off, great. And if we know it's somebody we need to focus on, great. There is no secrecy. There's no hiding different things, but we want to make sure that we're as respectful as we possibly can. Thank you.
I'm going to go to the woman in the blue, followed by this gentleman here, and then the gray shirt in the back. Go ahead. The question is, are we experiencing difficulty in collecting DNA, and what's contributing to that?
So my understanding in talking to the experts who have done this in connection with other disasters is the number of family members who are coming in to provide DNA samples is a lot lower than they've seen in other disasters. That's our concern. That's why I'm here today. That's why we're asking for this help. You know, as to why that is, I can only speculate. Part of coming up here today is I want to make sure that we reassure people that by coming in and providing a DNA sample, the only purpose for which it will be used is helping identify the unaccounted for. That is the only reason. I stand up here as not only the individual tasked with heading up this Family Assistance Center, but also the prosecuting attorney. So I want to make clear that, you know, it is not going to be used for any type of or entered into any criminal justice database. It's not going to be retained by any criminal justice agency. No one who comes to the Family Assistance Center is going to be asked whether or not they're a United States citizen. What we want to do, all we want to do, is help people locate and identify their unaccounted for loved ones. And so please come down to the Family Assistance Center, call the numbers we've provided. We want to help.
Thank you. Sir, the blue followed by the gray, and then the gentleman way in the back with the white, and the woman in the black in the middle. Sir?
At 6 p.m., you appeared live on television in the States. At that time, it appeared that you were not aware that the firestorm had already. I wonder if you were getting real-time updates that you were not. If not, why was that? Did this lag in communication by?
So the question is, on the night of the fire, with publicity and mayor being on an interview, were we aware to what degree of the magnitude of the fire, and did that have any contributing factor to the outcome? Correct?
Thank you for that. Welcome back. We had lots of information coming in. We had lots of communication that was broken down in terms of what was available as far as telephones. Most of what we received were coming from our fire department that was in the field. During that same time, we were also receiving most of the communications for what was happening in Kula, which was also going on the same. Actually, the fire initially was larger than one in Kula. I don't have all the times for me, and I know I'm going to have to go and piece that together when the interviews and the investigations come, and I will do that. So I don't want to guess at what time we got what. I know some things had happened. Earlier in the morning, for example, we had gotten 100% containment on a 3-acre fire that had started in Lahaina. So that later fire that came back got communicated later in that afternoon. So I can't tell you the exact time or how we were getting all the information. I know who I was getting my information from, who was passing it on to us, was in our emergency operating center. But I got the best information I had. I will say we were not on social media. We were not getting anything from that source. There was lots of stuff we saw later as well that may have been recorded during that time, but was not sent. I don't know where it was sent to or when it was sent out. Whatever time they took it, I don't know who they shared that with or when they shared it, but that was not in our EOC. I can tell you that much. And so, of course, we'll look into more of the times. I can't tell you what contributed to what. Because what also happened during that time is our police department was going around Lahaina making personal pleas, going to people's homes, knocking on doors. They were also using their speakers on their vehicles, asking everyone to evacuate. So that was happening also. I wasn't aware of that until later as well. So there's lots of information that came out, some of it concurrent with what was happening and some of it later. You know, the question is whether or not that lag, the second part of the earlier question, whether that lag contributed to any devastation, that would be a guess on my part. I can't tell you what would have or would not have changed with that information in terms of the fire. The degree of fire, the degree of winds that were happening. I'm going to leave that to the fire expert to determine what would have changed the outcome of this. Thank you.
As I said, gentleman in the gray, followed by the fellow in the blue, and then the woman in the middle in the black. Sir.
I apologize about this. But coming in today, the official unaccountable special agent in charge of Merrill 1,000, police chief said 1,100. Has there been any change or fluctuation?
So the question is, has there been any changes from an earlier number of 850, given the two numbers that we've heard today?
Thank you for your question. I know it is confusing because the numbers do change. And as I mentioned in my remarks, a lot of the change in the numbers is based on the fact we're still collecting new information in. For instance, we've made requests of one state government agency and a private sector agency for their records so that we can compare it to what we have already. So we may in fact, and I expect this to happen, every day the numbers will change. That being said, the number we're most concerned about is obviously trying to clear people from the list, and that has reliably gone down every day. Although we may identify more people that there were reports that they were unaccounted for, we are able to remove people from the list based on this influx of information. And the more information in this case, as I mentioned before, the better, so that we can get more additional information that'll help us get people off the list by identifying, for instance, their dates of birth, fingerprint information, DNA information, that sort of thing. Yeah, and yes, but let me just explain a little further. That doesn't mean necessarily, as I mentioned before, that these people are in fact missing. It's just that we have, the numbers I give you are reported unaccounted for, whether it be someone who just gave a first name, Chris is missing, or someone that gave very extensive and specific information. So we don't want to leave any stone unturned, so we're considering everybody on that list until we can prove that they shouldn't be on that list. As of today, it's between 1,000 and 1,100. Thank you.
Sir in the back with the glasses and the light colored shirt.
Thank you. Jack Morford from the New York Post. If I may ask about children. How many children are among those reported unaccounted for? How many remains of children have been recovered? And also, how many people have supplied DNA comparisons for children?
So the question is, do we have information on how many are children, how many remains are children, and have there been DNAs that have been specific to child victims reported?
That's a tough one, right? And I'd love to say there's none. I don't know the answer because we're not recovering whole bodies. I think I talked about it before. We're picking up ash. Some of it's crumbling. So here's what I can tell you is there's 13 folks that we've released their names, and you see their ages. We do know at some point we will be releasing some names of some children, but we don't have them identified. I know that we've recovered some that we believe to be. I don't know the exact number because we just don't have that. So we have to get that as a community, as a world society. We have to understand that that's going to happen. And so we'll get that when we can. But I really honestly can't give you the exact number because we're still sorting through it, which is why the plea for the DNA is so important. And so the question is, if you feel that you've got a family member that's unaccounted for, give the DNA. If you've got a family member that's unaccounted for, do the report. Let's figure this out. And so just a name with no callback doesn't help anybody. And so we want to not create panic and pandemonium. We want to deal with what we know is there. And we've got the area that we're searching, and we're doing everything we can to get those remains and to do that recovery. So as far as the DNA, I'm gonna leave it over to that. But I do know that on the lists of 1,100, we don't have any children listed on that.
Okay, to the woman. Oh,
I think I'd like to follow up from my perspective on the minor victims, the children. So this list that we have, again, sometimes there's not enough information to identify much about the person. Sometimes, again, as the chief mentioned, we only have a first or last name. That being said, of the unidentified, of the people on the list we're still trying to get more information on, we don't have anyone on the list that we know they have a date of birth that shows they're a minor. That doesn't mean, as the chief mentioned, there are not minor victims. I don't know the answer, but on all of our lists, we don't have any names currently that show a date of birth of someone who is a child. And yes.
Can you tell the question and I'll repeat
Yes,
it?
just the final part of the question was whether the families of children have applied for.
Okay, the final part of that question is whether families have given DNA specific for children.
The total number of family reference samples that have been collected thus far is 104. We're using those samples and the personal information provided to construct family trees or pedigrees to try and use the DNA for the identification purpose it was intended. I don't have the exact numbers on how many of those submissions are specifically looking for minors.
In the middle, yes.
Hi, I'm Marie from Georgios News. I want to talk a little bit more about kids because you're saying there are no kids on this. We are hearing from local parents where babies are missing. How can that be?
Okay, the question is again to clarify and confirm about the matching of children's names out there compared to what we do know.
We've heard a lot of stories, and I'm not saying that there's not kids, and I think I was very clear on that. But we have not confirmed any of them to have passed. And so we have to go through the process, and we'll get to it the best that we can, but we have not confirmed any of them at this point. And so we can only do with what we can do with at the time. And so we want very much to be able to give that peace and that mind. And I don't know if you saw the story of the notification, and I'm half tempted to have you raise your hand and tell me if you've seen it. But I got people that are having to go and make notifications for, at some point, it's going to be well over 100 if we can get them identified. And that's not in their job description. Nobody signed up to do that. And so we know we've got grieving families. We know that we've got uncertainty. We want to give people closure. But as of right now, the bottom line is we can't confirm them. I just can't say it's that person without having that empirical evidence to do that. And so we'll get to it, but we're going to do it right. I've seen those same things too, but we have to do it the right way.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't make myself clear. When whoever called in or sent an email, whatever it was on any of these lists, if they didn't provide a date of birth and they just said a name, John Doe is missing, unaccounted for, that doesn't allow me or anyone in the FBI to know for sure that that person is a minor or an adult or anything. So what we're trying to do is our team of analysts, agents, and professional support staff are making every effort through the information provided as well as using social media and any other publicly available information to try to recontact that person who made the original complaint to get more information. And this is, again, is so important that we have a family assistance center, which are sitting down and collecting very specific information, which would include, among other things, dates of birth. So again, to just stress the point, I'm not saying we don't have child victims. In our holdings of all these complaints, those who didn't provide a date of birth don't enable us to know whether that person was a minor or an adult or anything. Does that clarify it? Thank you.
Can we go back to this side, right here in the corner?
We've spoken to some families personally who have confirmed their own loved ones that are woman I spoke to yesterday. Her name wasn't. How often does?
So the question is, how often are names released compared to the notification to the families once they're identified?
You know what? And there's a lot of humanity in the question that you're asking, right? And so here's how we're trying to do this, and it's in flux. And I mentioned it was an HRS. It's actually a department policy, and we changed it for a reason, and I'll explain why we did that. What we're doing is we're making the notification. Let's say we make a notification today. We're trying to give the family 24 hours. And so if that person had texted because they have gotten that notification, we're trying to get that 24-hour time frame. And here's why. A little over a year ago, we had an accident where a lady died in the ocean, and her wife had been notified that day, but then we released it that same day. And she had let us know, sent me a very personal letter saying I didn't even have a chance to tell the rest of my family. And it was devastating to her. It was almost like re-victimizing them again. We're trying to give a 24-hour, trying our best to give a 24-hour window so that they can make some arrangements and maybe make some calls and maybe make it a little more personal, as opposed to just making it an instant gratification news thing. I know that there are people out there that are, again, having that question, and we're trying to answer it for them. And it's frustrating and it hurts. And the folks that have made the notifications, there is a bit of solace and a little bit of comfort, because at least you have that, because we do know that we have people that are victims and they never get closure. And so that's the reason why, and it's a little bit more of the historical on that. I hope that gives you what you need.
Okay, starting the part two.
Only for Maui learning. Two questions. Two-part question. First, can we get a presumption of debt? I think that's the number everybody wants. If you have it, or if you have projections of what it is, we'll take it. Secondly, Mayor, you released a number via video this weekend on Facebook. No, saying 850 people were missing. There was no notification widespread to the media. A lot of questions. Please tell us why you chose to do that and what you do with that.
Sure. So the question is, can we release or project and forecast the amount of dead? Also, why did the county release a video message to the public to provide information that the community was anxious to hear? We'll begin with Mayor.
No, we don't have a projection of what we think that final number will be. Was that your first part?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As far as why we released it that way, because we thought that would be the quickest way to get that information out. We understand everywhere I go, people ask that question. How many? They actually ask for four things, right? They want to know how many are reported missing, how many of you connected to the families, how many have you notified or identified, and how many notified. So what I will say is that we will continue. We didn't release one today because we knew we were having this press conference, so we released it here. And Special Agent Mayor was kind enough to come from Oahu to explain this process, because there's no way we could have explained it as well as he has. So we won't be doing press conferences every day to give out the numbers, but we will continue to do it out by Facebook or by video release. Can you tell me what the issue with that is, or why that's not a good way to do it?
Well, we've gotten so much information via press release. We did a story the day before saying the county hadn't issued that number. We've been in contact with the communications office the day before, the day after, and never got an updated number. A lot of my viewership was wondering what's going on here. What is going on?
That's fair. So we're just going to give it out, and I gave it out to you 850. Later that night, it went to 880, and the next day it went to over 1,000 when more people came in. I don't know if as a result of these releases and the media that people are going to be more likely to give us more information. We hope. We want more information. We don't want more people unaccounted for. We want more information. I think the important thing, though, for today is to understand how that list is made up. The way that what makes up that list. Some of them are just first names. The person who calls it in doesn't respond when we call them back to try to verify. We don't have a first name, last name, date of birth. which would be the obvious things to have. So we could answer your questions about what is the age of that person. And some we don't have gender. You'll have a name that could be a female or a male name. You just have the name. So if we can get just the basics, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, those things would help tremendously. See how many of these on these lists are verified and how many are not. Because right now, anybody can call in and say, I'm missing someone. Right now. You can call the number and say, so-and-so is missing. And we got to go and find out if we can try to match that up, which is why if we get the DNA, we get a verified list, we can get through this quicker and more accurate.
Thank you. Sir, right here. No, wait.
What is the process for determining?
So the question is, what is the process for determining next of kin, and what happens if they cannot be contacted?
Well, seriously, great question. We stood up what's called the MINT, the Morgue Identification Notification Task Force. The reason it's a task force is because when you have different agencies and you commingle, it becomes a task force. It's just a term, but obviously with what we're in right now, we kind of need to use some of those. We have investigators. I have folks from Honolulu Police Department. I have folks from the FBI. I have folks from MPD. And they're going in as detectives, if you will, scrubbing the information that we've got based on the list that we have. And so the number I'll use is 85 because that's the amount of police reports that we have. There's other things that we can use, but again, if it's and I'll make this plea, please. If it's a legitimate unaccounted person, use the email address unaccounted@mpd.net. Then we'll have a much more accurate number. We'll really know what we're dealing with. And so if it's legitimate, go into that. You're actually going to get kicked back as soon as you do a read receipt, if you will, with the instructions of what we need. And so we need your contact information, and we need some basic information, name, date of birth, relationship. That shouldn't be that hard. And we talk about this number. And you guys are the best journalists in the whole world, right? I mean, you're here because you're the best. And so if it's a legitimate person or if somebody's going to give you a story, then they give you a scoop. Is it because it's a name that you can't quote and somebody you can't contact? You're going to put your reputation and your career based on somebody that's a first name? Or are you going to do a little bit of digging to put your reputation on it? So when we give you it, it's because we're trying to do everything. And so the Mint does the investigation. They find that next of kin, and then we make that notification. 100%. And then the reason being is because then that could lead you to it, because you want to find who that next of kin would be. Obviously, if it's a spouse or a child, and then we can go from there. You might also be able, based on the report and the data, you might be able to find that this person, because in Hawaii, we have a thing called Hanai, and that's your family that's almost like an adopted family, and it means just as much to us as regular family does. And so you might be able to find who the family is based on that as well, because we want to give that closure. There'll come a point when once we have this, we may over time have to release those names, but we're trying diligently to be as respectful as we possibly can. And here's why. I think they've suffered enough. They owe us a little bit of a time, a little bit of patience to get this right and at least be human when we make that notification as opposed to just reading it somewhere. We want somebody to at least call them. There's a lot of other resources and different things coming up with this. And so we want to make sure we can do some one-on-one connection. And, you know, when we reached out, and just so you know, that's what we've got here in the state of Hawaii for, but when we reached out to the FBI, we said, MPD doesn't have the bandwidth to do this. And so they're assisting with us to do these on every single location that's outside of the state of Hawaii. That's a big deal. It's never happened before. Thank you for the question.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Well, I thought I did answer that. I'm trying really hard to when I get up here to at least answer your questions. But at some point we will. Just like at some point it'll be confirmed and then presumed. But we have to work on that. Okay.
Okay. Woman in the corner. Woman in the corner, followed by right here, and then fellow in the blue. Go ahead. So the question is, has there been difficulty or what contributes to it to track down the folks who have reported 1,000 or so missing?
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's been frustrating that we have people working very hard on this all day long, every day. And the fact that we've tried to reach out to every single person who made a complaint, and we don't get necessarily calls back, replies. I'm using this press conference, among other things, as a vehicle to get the word out that we need more information. And if you've been shy out there about contacting the Maui police or the FBI or anyone else to provide more information, please come forward. We need the public's help to get more information. And if you've gotten a call or an FBI employee has left a message or a police officer has knocked on your door, please get back to us so we can get through this list more efficiently. Well, let me just step back, because this list, again, is created from a variety of different lists, some of which never called a police agency. It came from another means, whether it be a shelter or anything else. And so we're using the information that was collected and trying to figure out how to get back in touch with that person, or even try to call the potential victims themselves. And we're using social media and other means trying to identify who is this person who made the complaint, or who is the unidentified person, unaccounted for person, so we can get in touch with them and get to the bottom of it. We just don't have necessarily, sometimes we don't have enough information to figure that out, but in a lot of cases, people just haven't been responsive to our requests. Thank you.
Gentleman right here. So the question is, what are some of the challenges that our search crews are facing as they go through the search efforts?
So I had asked Rick Barty, who is the Urban Search and Rescue Commander, he's a fire chief. He actually helped with the 9/11 disaster. I think he's probably the best one to answer that.
We're into an area now where we have challenges of layers of 4-story buildings, 2-story buildings that are on top of each other. And our job is now to delayer those buildings, make space for us to go ahead and go through it. Once we delayer it, check it out, delayer it, check it out, and continue with that. So a lot of these buildings were either Quonset hut style buildings made of metal that are bent down to where we can't enter. We're using heavy equipment for all of those types of searches.
We're approaching an hour, so I did commit to the fellow in the middle. I know that this is an important issue for our public and our community and their families. So we've been trying our best, and I appreciate your patience as we get through this. Start in the middle with the blue and blue.
Question about August 8th, Mr. Mayor and Chief Secretary. Mr. Mayor, when you appeared on KITV in the live interview that was referenced earlier, you said you were pleased to announce that Okio Place was opened up at 5 p.m. At that point, people had already been fleeing. 6 p.m. when you appeared, by timestamps, by 5:30, people were already in the ocean. Were fire and police communicating at that time about road closures? We also have reports from those who fled that they could not get out via Pilani Highway, but were directed down Piali Street to Front Street. Can that be confirmed as far as the north side exit? And when was it that everybody got under one roof together, Emergency Operations Center, to communicate about?
Okay, that was a really long question. So I'm going to just say that there were a lot of questions they heard, but to repeat some of it and capture it. The question was, with the changing and rapid times between 5:30, 6 p.m. and going through that evening, where did we land an umbrella under emergency management?
And were fire and police communicating about the road?
And the question about fire, police, responders communicating collectively on the road.
All right. I do think if you're going to ask a question, it should be one question. That was a lot in there, and I'm going to do my best to get it. And so I can't talk about the EOC on some of that. I'm just going to talk about police ops, if you don't mind. Police and fire communicate. They communicate very well together. We did not close or forbid people from getting out of Lahaina. If there was a down power line, we don't want that was live. We want to make sure that you didn't go over a down live power line. Police officers that night, that day, that afternoon, they were driving up and down on their PAs, pleading with people to get out. They were knocking on doors. They were doing everything they can. They knocked down a fence on Lahaina Luna to get people out because they needed to get out. And we had firefighters that, by the grace of God, did not die. We know that they commandeered a police vehicle and went back in to rescue the other firefighters that were trapped and pinned down because their fire truck had been consumed. And so we want to get people out. And so let me answer it like this. There is going to be a very detailed long after action. It might be the longest after action that's ever been. Every data point is going to be scrubbed and looked at and meticulously gone through. We're actively trying to recover people. We're actively trying to identify people. Our hearts are breaking to notify them. It's our community. It's our people too. And so I say that is, let us right now do what we need to do and let the after action do what it needs to do. But I can tell you that we did everything we can from a law enforcement perspective, from a first responder public safety perspective, to make sure that we preserve life and protect each other. And so we've already found that some of the false reports on the direction of travel were not correct. We were getting people out of the area. We were forcing people not to go at a certain point down Front Street because it had already gotten too late. And so the efforts were to get people away from the fire and away from the danger.
They weren't directed down. Yeah.
They were not directed toward the danger.
I'm just going to finish up part of that. I gave you the best information I had at the moment that I gave it to whenever you want to talk about, just like we're trying to do right now. We lost contact with one of the fire trucks. I don't know if it was fire truck 6. We were worried in the EOC because there was a regular time that the fire folks up in Kula and in Lahaina and eventually Kihei were to call back in, that they were just to report back in, and there was no reporting. So there was a period of time there where you did not know what happened to these firefighters. I can't tell you exactly what hour that was, but they were one of our main forms of communication we were getting. And we eventually found that they had their truck burnt in the fire because they were trying to fight it. And then they eventually made it out, and we were notified that they were not killed in the fire. But there was a lot going on, I can tell you, and I agree with the chief. I'm happy to answer all these questions when the right time comes, which is when the after action and investigation comes about, what we knew when we knew it. You folks know a lot more information today than we knew on that day. Everybody's taking information after the fact and applying it to then and asking how come we didn't know back then what we know today. Because the answer is we didn't know back then what we know today. And even while it was happening during the time it was going on. Lots of reasons why. And you can decide what that reason was, whether it was somebody did something on purpose, or somebody did something out of negligence, or somebody did something out of necessity. There are probably a lot of reasons you can apply to why we do what we do as human beings. But I can tell you I gave the best information I had at the moment. And I'm sure so did those police officers and those firefighters who were trying to fight a fire and communicate with us all at the same time. You can just imagine, or you don't have to, what was going on during that time. But thank you for the question.
Okay, right there in the back corner. Yes. Chrissy.
But we're still hearing about, were any bodies recovered from the ocean washed up on Lanai? Clarify that once and for all.
The question is, with rumors and are there any confirmations of fatalities in the ocean, in the water, and rumors about bodies washing out on Lanai? Chief?
The Lanai rumor is absolutely false. And my understanding is Coast Guard got one. out of the water.
That was deceased.
That was deceased.
We've been a little over an hour, so I'm going to take one more from the back right here. She's trying really hard. Yes, in the yellow pants. Go ahead.
Why the name of
Okay. The question is, why are the names of victims who have been confirmed by their own family and relatives not added to the known names list?
So I heard a story today for the first time. I have no basis in fact on this. That somebody said that they recovered a family member and took them to a police station. We don't know anybody that happened to. I can't find that. And so at the end of the day is the coroner's office, and the process here is the one that actually makes that notification. And so we don't have that. If there's a family member that recovered, folks, please come forward and help us get to where they recovered. But the recoveries that we have gotten were the ones that first responders recovered. We don't have any, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure on this. We don't have any that somebody said, "Hey, here's my deceased loved one," and dropped them off at either the station or somewhere else.
Thank you. Final question on the far left here.
I've said this before, but I really need to say it again. So, yes, right. The people that I speak with, I'm very angry. They are very grateful. I would just like to ask to continue to be as forthright as you are being.
So not quite a question, but eagerness for a reminder for us to be forthright, and also it felt like a kind of a media hug from you. So I'll take that. It's been a very long week. Yeah, folks, you can approach to take pictures of the maps at this time, and myself and Joy will be available to you. Thank you all very, very much.